begin, we will be stopping the live stream on Facebook. So for our friends that are tuning in from there, thank you for joining us and we hope to see you in our next webinar. I will now pass the time on to Daryl, our Business Development Director, who will be the moderator for the Q&A section.
Thanks, Trung. Hope everyone can hear me. Hi, Frank. Hi, Yusry. Hi, Shingo.
Hi, Daryl.
All good.
All good.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your generous insights. I'm going to give Shingo a break first because he just went right with his presentation. To all the attendees who are still with us on Zoom, so now is really the perfect time, right? Because we have 3 speakers who have already been there and done that in some sense, specifically for offshoring tech teams in Vietnam, right? So if you have any burning questions, please type them in the chat. But if not, I've also prepared a list of questions, and I don't see any question in the chat right now. Actually, there's one question from Frank, but I think let's give Shingo a break first. I'm going to direct the first question that I have to Frank and Yusry, right? So both of you all have shared quite a little bit about how to get things done and what needs to be done in terms of building your tech team, be it in Vietnam or some of the other models that you have shared, right? But maybe we take a step back from the Singapore perspective, right, or from the overseas perspective. What is it that you all really like about Vietnam in terms of the developers, right? There must be a reason why we see many companies explore Vietnam or keep going back to Vietnam to hire.
Let me take this question. So before I started at techjdi, right, I went to quite a few different countries to take a look, right? I went to Indonesia, I went to Philippines, I went to Thailand, Malaysia as well, and see which was the best market to go into. And I settled with Vietnam because Vietnam has great talents. So if you are in Singapore and you go for all those Maths Olympiad or Computing Olympiad and whatever not, right, you can see all the Vietnamese over there because the Vietnamese are generally a very smart crowd. And there is quite a lot of developers that is being churned out from the universities over here of good talents, and that's already having overseas exposure as well. So in fact, I married one of them. My wife is Vietnamese. She was an ASEAN scholar, came to Singapore to study. So I guess she's pretty smart in a lot of ways, right? So basically, I think the price point matches the productivity, the smartness is there. So it's actually a very good make a base for the development hub. Compared that to Indonesia itself, I think Indonesians, it's a larger market, 300 million population. There is competition for the talents over there, and yet at the same time, I don't know, maybe this is my own view that there is the quality of talent over in Vietnam is generally better than Indonesian side. Philippines, I don't see such a big developer pool, so it may not be that good, even though their English is better, but it's just that they are just not STEM trained that much. Science, tech, engineering, mathematics trained. So we compare to India. India is also a mixed bag. It's a very big market. There's very good developers as well, but the market is big enough for them to absorb themselves. And of course, they also serve the US market a lot, not the Southeast Asian side. China, I think they are over the past few years, the salaries has gone up, such that the tier 1 cities is even more expensive than Singapore for some of the tech companies. So if you go tier 2, tier 3, the question is how do you access those talent over there? Yeah, so all in all, in this region, I think Vietnam is one of the more promising and high potential countries, which has proven itself over the past 6 years.
Okay, perhaps I put in my 2 cents worth. So as a co-founder, basically you need to look at both cost and talent. So when you think about the cost side, I think generally speaking, many countries in the region, within the vicinity of Singapore, perhaps 2 to 3 hours flight away. Generally speaking, I think cost-wise, they are about the same. So it's not like you choose Vietnam because you'll be able to get it cheaper, or if you choose Indonesia, it's a lot cheaper kind of thing. Yeah, I think generally speaking, cost-wise, is the same. So what is the difference? Where do you go? So basically, the decision boils down to the quality of the talents, and also balancing it with a lot of other factors. But I think as a CTO, you want people who are technically good, And as Frank has mentioned, Vietnam, in comparison with many other regional countries, I think they do have the best technical talents. Vietnam has a very strong syllabus in STEM. There are many technical universities who are actually very forward-looking and teaching very recent modern technologies and all that. Of course, maybe there's a slight, how do I say, a slight association with technologies like .NET or PHP, because there's quite a bit of promotion on this. But I think generally speaking, they will adapt very well to whatever technology stack they use. And because, yeah, they're just very good technically. Yeah. So that's just, so yeah, so basically it's not really so much out of the cost, because cost-wise, I think it's comparable in the region. Another thing I also want to say is that why Ho Chi Minh City rather than Hanoi? So basically, maybe you've decided you want to go into Vietnam. Then you may be wondering why Hanoi. Why not Hanoi but Ho Chi Minh City? For me, it's basically the distance. Okay, there's number one, a lot more flights to Ho Chi Minh City, and distance-wise, it's only about an hour and a half, at most 2 hours. So it's actually very convenient to travel back and forth on a very regular basis. So if you feel like you want to visit your team twice a month, it's still pretty affordable. Yeah, especially if you can plan it in advance and you get some of the low-cost tickets. Yeah. Same with Indonesia. Certain parts of Indonesia is very similar. But I find that other locations in ASEAN, other than Indonesia and Malaysia, they are either too far or they do not have very frequent flights. Yeah. So basically you end up spending more effort on remote communications. Yeah. Instead of being able to see each other in person. Yeah, especially now that countries are all opening up. I think this is a very strong factor. Yeah.
Thanks, Frank and Yusry, for sharing. So it's good to know that companies are going to Vietnam not just because of budget constraints or lower salaries, right? But I think Vietnam has both quality and quantity as well, right? Which is why it is such an attractive place for companies to set up their tech hubs. Very interesting point by Yusri on the last portion, right, between Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. In fact, Vietnam is quite big, or actually I should say quite long, right? I think the flight from Singapore to Ho Chi Minh is shorter than Ho Chi Minh to Hanoi. So that is quite an important consideration as well, considering I think Frank also mentioned, right, that it is important, especially now that borders have reopened, right, to continue to visit your offshore teams in Vietnam. Okay, so I'm going to direct the next question to Shingo. Hope you had a short break after your presentation. So firstly, for those who have missed the news, right, I need to congratulate Shingo once again, because it was just announced last week, right, that DreamCloud got acquired by Temus, which is a Temasek company in Singapore. So heartiest congratulations on that. But I think what the audience would like to know, right, is your journey, right, and what it means to you for DreamCloud being acquired, because I'm sure you and your team in Vietnam have played an integral role to this as well, right? So what was the journey like over the past 4 years, right, being one of the first few hires in Vietnam, all the way to being acquired?
Okay. For my case, I'm not the first guy in Vietnam team. I'm the third guy in the Vietnam team. But when I come here, it's very special. Is that it's not DreamCloud offer me a deal, but I also offer them a deal. I offer that I will try to expand and grow the team in Vietnam, and I also offer them that most of the foundation here I saw nothing. And how can the guys work here is that they just individual working for different projects, not related to each other. My offer is also like to get them closer. Yeah, and then we get 5. After 1 year, we have about 10, and then we got COVID. It slowed down. It slowed down till 2020. one or two guys more, and now we have 17 guys in Vietnam. Yeah. The first time is very difficult for me is that most of the Vietnam guys don't have the commitment on the quality. Yeah, they just try to work their own on the technical depth, everything. Oh, I fix on the depth, I fix on the issue and performance. That's all. Something like that. They don't have the mind that to. I need to think about what the client will use, what is the best experience, something like that. Yeah, and then every time, again and again, I listen that the flick, a complaint, many things. So the Singapore team when working with the Vietnam guys. Then around the end of 2020, it's not anymore. And the first good news is that it's worth to work with the Vietnam team because they can understand what I talk about and they can promote more things for me. Yeah, it's very happy for me at that time. And then more and more things that I can improve because I found that there's some lacking things for the foundation I need to build up and grow the culture more and more to align with the NDA of the dreamcloud. Yeah, and one of the most important reasons team must acquire dreamcloud is that we have the Vietnam team. They also want to expand in Vietnam.
Wow, such a what a crazy journey, right? It seems over the past 4 years, with the hyper growth and then COVID kind of put things to a halt or put things to a slowdown. But really congratulations! Really glad to hear that things have turned out well. But I think you are right, right? It's not just about dreamcloud offering you a job, but you also offering dreamcloud something in return. And I think that really echoes what Frank shared earlier as well in his communications model, right? Where he recommended the team lead to team lead instead. Especially when you grow to a team of 10 or 17 like dreamcloud, you really need to have a strong technical manager like Shingo. To clear all the grievances, the complaints, to make sure that everyone's commitment is there and everyone's career path is being taken care of, right? So I think that also speaks, right, to the quality of the talent pool in Vietnam, where you can find strong technical managers like Shingo, who has something to bring to the table, who can continue to grow the Vietnam team and play an integral role for the company to eventually be acquired. So I think that's a path that a lot of other companies dream of as well. So thanks Shingo for sharing that wonderful story and that awesome journey. Okay, going back to communications, this seems to be quite a recurring theme, right? With all three speakers, what tools do you recommend and what best practices? I think for Frank's slide, he has shared a little bit. Yusry have name dropped some tools as well, but maybe we can have a quick summary and consolidation in terms of the tools and best practices, or maybe more importantly, on what sort of cadence, right? How often do you have to communicate with your offshore teams virtually, and how often do you actually have to fly in to be there physically with the team?
Maybe I start this off first. So I myself fly. I spend about 40% or 50% of my time in Vietnam, and as do Daryl, right? Because the two of us fly in and out every month. We will be here every month. We have our own place that we stay over here, so we are always with the team over in Vietnam. If we're not in Singapore with the clients, right? So over in Vietnam, whenever we land over here, we are always we lunch together with them, eat together with them. We go out together with them after office hours as well. Weekends we also go for clean massage together and etc. and all that kind of thing to bond together more, right? So that's a part of bonding, of course, and all the beer dinners, etc. after office hours things. I just get fat over in Vietnam, even though there's a lot of vegetables, but I still get fat because of all these meals and beers, right? Yeah, so that part, it cannot be ignored, and I think we enjoy it as well. For communication on a day-to-day basis, we use Jira, we use Confluence, we use Slack. We are on, well, I'm checking checking my phone now. I have so many chats over here. I mean, we have WhatsApp for the Singapore side, Viber for the Vietnam side, Telegram for some of the Web3 sites, Zalo as well, because Zalo is like the Facebook, it's like the chat in Vietnam, very popular over here, right? So yeah, so we haven't touched even any of the deep tech stack yet. Like Figma got recently bought over by Adobe, so I don't know how it will be. But yeah, Figma has been very useful for us to do the UI UX communications. Yusry is smiling. I think he has a lot of thoughts in his head. And Shingo as well. So I'm thinking he might be using Figma too. Is it right? Yeah, so yeah, we do a lot of that. Every day we have the daily huddles lah. But we're either in Singapore and Vietnam, we're online. We have our daily huddles in the morning about 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. whereby all of us will go and post what we've been doing yesterday, what we were supposed to do yesterday, and what did we do yesterday? What are we supposed to do today? So all this kind of thing, it keeps us on our feet and to know, okay, what is everybody doing? Yeah, to have that same vision. We also have our quarterly town hall, so that we can so everybody can know what's going on between the different countries. So I think all of these are what we put in place. Maybe I'll leave it to Yusri to go through this.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. So I think, to be honest, it's not so much about the tools, but it's about what you communicate. Okay, because different organizations may be using Teams, Slack. So for referreach, we use Slack. We use fairly standard tools that I think every startup has heard of them before. So it's Slack, Jira, Confluence, Figma, Google's Suite, and all that. Yeah. So it's more, to me, it's more about how you use these tools rather than the tools itself. So generally speaking, I think in terms of, let's start off with specifically work. So basically, you need to be able to communicate the tasks very well. So this could take multiple forms. There'll be discussions over these tasks. So people will have questions, then you need to do Q&A and all that. So to me, so for example, design will come through Figma. The design team as well as the leads, they can have discussions through Figma itself. Okay, because Figma, you could follow each other. You could even do like a conversation, so everyone sees what a shared screen. Yeah, okay, so that's one powerful part about Figma. For the tech team itself, basically there are daily stand-ups that's being done within the tech team itself. These typically start at 9 a.m. China time, lasts about 15 minutes. So even though our team is about 9 to 10 people in Vietnam, but we always keep ourselves with to about a minute for each, and a maximum of about 15 minutes for the whole stand-up session. Yeah, and generally speaking, I think I've mentioned this, we need to lock down all the knowledge. So if we are doing a voice call, make sure it's written down somewhere as a summary or as a recap of the meeting. Ideally, I do stress this with my team, is that make sure that you are prepared for the meeting. So it means you should have documents that's already ready. So during the meeting, it's more of like sharing the documents either as a shared screen and people can make comments to it. So everything is locked down more or less. Yeah, and I think one optimization that I make with my team, especially now that I actually have a project manager in Vietnam, is that the tech team does actually communicate mostly in Vietnamese. Okay, but my project manager will give me a summary, and once in a while I will actually join the calls and attempt to understand what they're saying. Okay, I probably will catch in an everyday conversation maybe 10 to 20% of the words. Yeah, especially if it's a technical conversation, they'll end up using very common technical terms. So yeah, you kind of catch that, and then you also kind of like learn new words, and I think that's great. Yeah, then of course the last one, besides this everyday thing, is about the cadence of meeting your team. Now that the gates between Vietnam and Singapore have opened, I've been resuming my trips on average about once a month. Yeah, and especially now that we do have quite a big team, so it's not just me going over, but representatives from the product team are also heading over. So this one, if we match up the cadence, it could be roughly somewhere between 1 to twice a month. And I think that's great for everyone. Yeah. And on a regular basis, currently it's on a quarterly basis. We do fly down everyone who's because my team is actually remote within Vietnam. So we've got engineers and product people in Hanoi, in Da Nang, in Vũng Tau, in Nghệ An. So it's all over Vietnam, north, south, central. Yeah. So we've been flying them on a regular basis to Ho Chi Minh City, where the rest of the team is, and being able to meet everyone in person. So this is done approximately once a quarter. Of course, we hope to increase it to once a month, but I think that will be sometime in the future. Yeah. But and within Ho Chi Minh itself, our team is basically mostly remote, but we do meet up in smaller teams, maybe at a cafe somewhere in Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, because I think one thing also to note is Ho Chi Minh City is land size is not too large, at least the urban area, but the issue is with the traffic jams. So there are many people who have to travel an hour and a half to get to the office. So sometimes this becomes a turnoff, and then they may decide, okay, they do not want to join your company because you are enforcing in-office kind of a policy. Yeah. So to maximize the talents that you can choose from and hire, I do recommend that I at least at the minimum is a hybrid policy, but you can do virtually full remote. I think that's going to be super great. But of course, as in a remote team, your communication, your management, your leadership needs to be super strong. Yeah. Okay.
Shingo, do you have anything to add to the conversation? Do you agree or disagree? Does dreamcloud do their communications differently? Or maybe you think that it should be the Vietnam team flying over to Singapore instead of Singapore flying to Vietnam? Right? What do you think?
That's also a good idea. I agree with Jeffrey that it's not only the tool, it's the way we communicate together. Is that in software development we also have HR or Scrum something. We have the daily stand-up. At that time, everything we can catch up, and every guys can have the balance about the knowledge and also about the issue that we stop something. Yeah, but at the beginning, as I mentioned in my presentation, is that the Vietnam guys is very shy to show themselves. So that's why when they come on board, I need to seek rules. Yeah, that's why we have the behavior regulation, the regulation about the communication, to be confident and open-minded when you discuss with the other guys. Yeah, so I think that it's almost the way we communication will determine is a set or not. It's not about the tool. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much for all the great insights. Okay, I almost forgot about Frank's question. So I think TED is one example, but there might be some popular holidays in Vietnam where people tend to take leave. I think it's a well-deserved break as well. And from what I understand from some of our colleagues, not everyone is living in the main city, so they would have to go back to their hometowns as well, and they want to spend a little bit more time, right, for commuting or to spend time with their family and loved ones before coming back to work. So maybe Yusry and Shingo, you can share your perspectives, right? When tech is coming, or when there are long holidays where majority of your team wants to go on leave, or maybe even the full team, right? Yeah, how do we actually manage that, right? How do we cover this from a resource or product support perspective? Yeah.
Okay, I think this is a very interesting question because I've been working with Vietnam teams since 2018, so that's about 5 years in all. Yeah, since we're coming to the end of 2022, it's about 5 years. And I think generally speaking, because our team structure is very heavily tilted to Vietnam, indirectly, actually, we do also treat TED as a sort of a break. Yeah, so basically things tend to be a bit lighter. Our teams in Singapore, definitely there'll be 2 days that's Chinese New Year. So out of that week, we are actually, to be honest, the Vietnam team is only away for 3 out of 3 days rather than the full 5 days, because the Singapore team will have 2 days that they are away to. So effectively, they're only away for an additional 3 days. So what we do during that period is, for example, support is basically falls to the Singapore team. Not too difficult when you are small. Basically, everyone's friendly with one another. It's very easy to arrange. Perhaps in a larger organization, it's a bit different. But I would expect in a larger organization, you would already have like support teams, perhaps even 24/7 support teams arranged. So I don't really think that's going to be a major issue. And for me, because I'm also a technical co-founder, I'm technically trained, probably the most technically experienced. It's not really an issue. They help me, I help them too. Yeah. So say, for example, like if we have issues over Chinese New Year or the TED Festival and it falls during that period, there's no major issue for me to actually get my hands dirty and attempt to fix stuff. Yeah, of course, as I said, when you have grown, you definitely will put people on standby and things like that. So there's always this arrangement where you work something out with your team. Yeah. But of course, the rest of the organization, knowing that there will be a week where no real development work will take place, then we do use that time wisely. For example, making sure that we are all ready for the next sprint, because there's a lot of other things that can take place that's not dependent on what the tech team is doing. Yeah. So to me, it's not really a big deal. And if it becomes a big deal, then I would question your company's organization. Why is it that your company can't run when half its employees are away? Yeah. So that's my question. The worst is that, I mean, I have done this. If the company can't function when I'm on leave, then I'll start getting worried. Yeah. So it's a very similar situation. Basically, you need to build an organization that will run, regardless whether you're on leave or half the company's on leave and things like that. Yeah. So it's about your own organizational structure, your own organizational planning. Yeah. It is not about people are on holiday and things will fail. Yeah, if you have this question, I think it's probably not the right question to be asking. Yeah.
I would love to hear Shingo's answer on how it's been done. Right? But maybe before that, I share as you prepare your answer. I'll share some of the things that we see from Singapore from JDI side, because we have multiple teams with us, right? So this question does come from time to time, right? Because a lot of our clients are in Singapore and Vietnam, right? So it doesn't really help that way, because that in Vietnam is Lunar New Year in Singapore, same kind of time. It doesn't help because if you have foreign customers, then we are all at the same time, everybody is on leave, right? So somebody must sacrifice. Somebody must be sacrificed to be on standby, have the handphone ready to reply anytime. But of course, if he does reply, then there will be a public holiday rate stuff. You get OT rates to help to support during this period of time, right? But of course, if your customers are all in Singapore and or Vietnam, then everybody's on leave, right? So what big issue is going to come? But if you're doing a SaaS for the rest of the world, the show doesn't stop, right? It can go on. That's when you have to pay more attention to have the support. So some of our teams, they actually had the support team this in place to make sure that everybody is there, supporting from home when required. Some of them don't. If they don't, they simply just shut down. And then they'll leave it to whoever is at home to last minute try to respond. So that may not be the good answer, but that's why I see on the market. Shingo, what about dreamcloud?
Here we have very special structure is that every project here we have Singapore and Vietnam join together. So that every time we have the public holiday in Vietnam, there's still 1 or 2 Singapore guys there. A little bit slow down, but the work still in progress for that. Yeah, and the same, if in Singapore we have public holiday, it's not public holiday in Vietnam, and we still keep going. And for the long break, like Tet holiday or something like Merry Christmas, we need to plan further. So 1 or 2 months ago, you need to plan it and bring it to the project manager first, so that we can plan the resort to do that or to back up. Yeah, that's something.
So the last one who apply cannot go on leave. Okay. Okay, thank you for your answer.
Yeah, I think it's about it's a management question. Yeah, basically, I think management should take a step to organize, have very clear policies, and make sure that it's to your liking. It actually works for your customers, for your team, and all that. So it's about planning in advance. It's not like when Ted arrives, then you start scrambling for an answer. Yeah. So I would say maybe perhaps it's not so much about having 24/7 teams, but basically planning in advance and making sure that it actually makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's about planning ahead, having the right management and the right structures in place to facilitate, right, the work still goes on and the support still goes on during the public holidays. I guess easier said than done, but yeah, there's something that companies have to take note of, right? When we have an offshore team in Vietnam, there are different set of public holidays and things that you might want to take note of. Okay, I think I have time probably for one last question before I hand it back to Trung for a final announcement. I want to go back to another recurring theme that all speakers actually touched on in different degrees. That is the culture, right? I think everyone spoke about it verbally, but Frank had one slide, right, about coffee, Hai Bayo, and things like that. Maybe Shingo can take the first step at this, right? Do you agree with what Frank and Yusry might have shared in terms of the culture in Vietnam, and what do you want to add on, right, in terms of the common mistakes that Singapore companies or foreign managers might have about Vietnam?
Sharing.
I'm just sharing that for your so that you can see what I wrote previously. This is the one.
Yeah, Shingo, what do you think? Is it really football? Is it really just coffee, bubble tea, and Hai Bayo? Or yeah, what are the other things that we need to know about Vietnam?
Yeah, you're right that most of the guys here like to play football. Yeah, they also they love football. If every time that Vietnam team to in the battle with the other team in the world, so we can all the people come out to the road to cheer them up. Something, yeah. And for beer, it depends. It depends because some guys cannot drink, but they can 1, 2, 3, yo, yeah, they can cheer stuff, but they don't drink. Yeah, it depends. That's why it depends. For the other things that if you can find the most very interesting culture in Vietnam is that every morning the guys come to the office very early to take a cup of coffee. Yeah, it's the things that they like. They start a new day. Yeah, in Singapore I found that is the milk tea, I think, right? when I come to Singapore, I found that I always use milk tea instead of coffee. In Vietnam, it's coffee, and bubble tea is for Gen Z. Gen Z, mostly.
Yeah, Gen Z and the girls.
Yes.
Maybe Yusri, anything you want to add to this?
I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from what I've observed, generally speaking, I think Vietnamese team, one thing is that you have to listen to their grievances and take it seriously. Okay, this probably does work. Is probably the same case in any other country, but I do notice that in comparison with Singapore is that showing that management is actively working on grievances is super important. Yeah, and because I think this also boils down to the culture. There may be a certain expectation of how things are done, and as a foreign organization, we need to respect that culture. Yeah. So if something doesn't really make sense, the Vietnamese employees do bring it up relatively quickly, and I think there is a expectation for it to be fixed quickly. Yeah. Things like community spirit, are all these dinners and events. It's one thing I've noticed is that Vietnamese do tend to be a lot more sociable. So team building events, get-togethers, regular dinners is something that almost everyone looks forward to. It could be as simple as going out for a coffee break after having your lunch. Maybe you have lunch in a food place, and then you move on to a coffee place, and then you just have a chit chat and things like that. It can be just these small things that makes everyone happy. Yeah. Beer culture, yeah, I guess that's pretty strong culture. Not everyone drinks, but definitely I noticed that. Of course, it could be because of the price. Okay, you can get a can for $1 or so, perhaps a bit less. So, and relatively speaking, it's very cheap for the income. So definitely, you can afford to drink more. In Singapore, I think it's like $10-$20, so people tend to drink less because it's expensive relative to the income and all that. Yeah, there's a strong coffee culture, but I don't quite agree with Shingo saying that Singapore tends to drink more bubble tea or milk tea. I do notice that at least working with engineers in my past experience in my past companies and all that, coffee is like the most popular drink in the office. So if your office has got one of those automated espresso machines, my experience is that we go through perhaps almost a kilo of coffee beans a day. Yeah, for the whole team. So I totally disagree with that part about milk tea. But perhaps milk tea might be more popular with other organizational functional teams. Yeah, but for the tech team, it seems like coffee is our most important intake, yeah, because it keeps us awake. Yeah.
Maybe Yusri hasn't hired a Gen Z yet.
Yes. Perhaps not yet. Yeah, because I think yeah, maybe it's because when I build my team, I tend to hire the most experienced engineers that the company can afford. Yeah, it's only perhaps at a later stage then we'll start hiring more freshies or more junior engineers. So naturally, I think our team tends to be on the older side. Yeah.
Just to clarify, I think the bubble tea is more for the Gen Z and also for the girls, because inside our office we got admin ladies and they love bubble tea.
Yeah, perhaps. Okay, I think generally speaking, that's my observation about the team and the culture.
Okay, so a big thank you again to all three of you, Frank, Yusri, and Shingo. I think we have run out of time, so I'm going to pass the time back to Trung. I think he has a final announcement to make before we call it a day. Trung, back to you.
All right, thank you, Daryl. We are coming to the end of our webinar. Before we wrap. All right, thank you, Daryl. We are coming.